Welcome to Demming Chronicles Season 2. We chat with persons whose thoughts and opinions are different. They're the ones who can help us prepare for a different tomorrow. On today's program, we welcome Dale Ramirez. Welcome, Dale.
Thanks for having me.
We also welcome Alvern Porter. Welcome, Alvern.
Thanks for having me.
Demming Chronicles Season 2. We'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back to Demming Chronicles and welcome to Alvern Porter. Alvern, tell me, what would you be doing at this time of year, maybe 2 years ago?
Looking to book a flight, already have a flight booked to go Berlin for their carnival, which is supposedly next week, but due to COVID, there will be no carnival in Berlin.
So 2 years ago, you would have been organizing to be in Berlin.
Yes, we have one event in Berlin, which is called Up, and we also partner with Carnival Explosion, who has a band on the road, like a float as it's called, and also some other events during the weekend. The carnival starts from the Thursday, and it runs until Monday, which is now a holiday in Berlin.
Wonderful. So tell us, what do you normally do? What's your area?
Event management, event coordination, television production. In Berlin and events outside of Trinidad Carnival and helping produce or co-producing Marshall Monday, Cass on the Rocks, Soca Monarch with Advanced Dynamics, I do events with Dirty Dozen, Soca Brainwash, Emoji, which is the British arm of Dirty Dozen, and Soca Brainwash, as everybody knows, Private Ryan. So it's an all-encompassing group of people because it's all one team.
Tell us, what is Dirty Dozen? I know that is an old movie.
It's actually a juve band. It was formed about 8 to 10 years ago by Chinua, Kanata, Efwa, more family, so close friends and family. It's a funny story. We stormed the juve band one year, and the second year we decided to bring some friends along to actually participate in the juve band, which was about 40 to 50 of us. And after that, we said, you know what, we could actually form a juve band. Because if we bring about 50 people last year to this band, why not just form our own thing? And from that, it had no turning back. We started at about 250 persons, and that escalated.
Just for my clarification, did you try to storm a juve band with 40 persons?
No, we stormed with about 20. And the year after, we actually took 40 masqueraders, paying masqueraders to the juve band.
Okay, I'm sure that whoever's juve band it is, they must be breathing a sigh of relief now that you actually brought 40 paid participants to their band. But tell me, given that kind of background, what has COVID done to you and the guys you work with?
Well, COVID has made us learn to evolve. So pre-COVID, a lot of the events were meeting and greeting people, social interaction, and all that. But due to COVID, we have now taken some of the events virtually. Brainwash we did when COVID started in Trinidad. We did a virtual brainwash to raise funds for persons who lost their jobs, couldn't afford to purchase food on their own. Was in a hard place, let's put it that way. And with Ryan's brainwash team, his mom, his sister, Chinua, Kevin, we raised $84,000 TT dollars, along with partnering with Hardcore and some other. I think Massey was one of the people we partnered with as well. And we distributed food around the country. We also worked with the Port of Spain Corporation, the mayor, and they also distributed some of the food and the cash that we raised to the families that were in need. 30 dozen. Go ahead.
So you have been able to use COVID as an opportunity to do good and to change the way you do things. How long do you think that will last?
In Trinidad and the rest of the Caribbean, I foresee the next 2 years. Europe is opening up, England is opening up. As of last week, you're now able to go to someone's house and hug them in the UK. And on the 21st of June, that is, we are now able to have indoor dining, indoor clubbing, restaurants get to open fully, stores, everything. So it's more or less going back to normal. I'm not quite sure how the Prime Minister feels about Notting Hill Carnival, as it's going to be an event, because Notting Hill Carnival have over 2 million people that take part. So I don't foresee that actually happening this year. But outside of that, it's fine. Trinidad and the rest of the Caribbean, I don't know when that's going to happen for us. I don't see a carnival in Trinidad in 2022, probably 2023, based on the vaccination and things like that.
Wow. So if you don't even see a carnival in Trinidad in 2022, then what will become of your activities as an income generator?
Um, Me myself, I also have the production part of life to work with, and that has now gone over to the new platforms like Zoom, for example, and Microsoft Teams, where we host different events on these platforms. With regards to the event part of things in Trinidad, I don't see an income coming in there. In the UK and the rest of the world that we host events in, the possibility exists that we may be able to now go back out and receive an income or gain an income, I should say, from that part of the world. But in Trinidad, I don't foresee entertainment being a source of revenue in the next 2 years.
My understanding of the carnivals all over the world is that it really kicks off with Trinidad. So if we are not having a carnival to kick off that kind of entertainment, how do you see those happening? Where will they get their themes? Where will the music come from?
Well, that's a good question, Denise. Trinidad is the start of Carnival around the world. Because Carnival starts in Trinidad in June, July, when the band launches start, and then we progress into the music, soca music, coming down to September, December with the early release, and also taking Grenada and Barbados music because their carnival is before ours, and bringing it over to our carnival where it's more frequently played, for lack of a better term. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I foresee that some of the other countries may be spearheading Carnival for 2022 or 2023. The music aspect of things, I don't know how that's going to relate or how people are going to accept that, because Marshall and some of the other artists have taken a hiatus to stay in their little zone and do other things and not produce music.
One of the lessons that I have had in my life experience is that you can't shelve your product because nobody just keeps it on the shelf waiting for you. Something will come in to fill that void. Do you see that happening with regard to our music?
Yes, I do. I do see that happening because if you look at what has happened over the years, where Trinidad was the leading soca or music genre, if you want to put it that way, across the Caribbean, and then Barbados took the mantle and ran with it with their sort of groovy music. People like Kevin Little came out and he ran soca or soca music, if you want to call it that, for a few years. He's still number one on the chart. He's still recognized as the soca ambassador for music, in spite that we Trinidadians, or Trinidadians in the whole, think that Marshall Montano is. Marshall Montano is a more recognized and probably, I could say, more talented musician, but we haven't gone to that extreme where we are recognized internationally as dancehall music or reggae. I don't know if you're aware, but Kes put out an album, Home, during the COVID pandemic, and on iTunes he had to label it as reggae. It's not soca music on iTunes or any medium that you can find the album. And the reason for that is that soca music is not recognized across the world.
You're raising a really complex area there, because if there is no label for our music, then I don't see what the future of the music is going to be. But let's just come back to the fact that you pivoted, the fact that you do not see a carnival before 2023. What is your advice to that range of persons whose livelihood depended on carnival?
You need to evolve. The truth and in fact of life is evolution. If you were a mass band owner, and I'm sure you have some sort of business sense or business acumen, as they call it, you can now move to another field or another sort of employment, whether it be teaching people about business. If you're a designer, you should look into teaching design if you're that capable. Because to be honest, you're going to be sitting on your hands, or like on that little ostrich on Sesame Street, if you remember, that sticks his head in the sand and wait for everybody to pass, and then come out of the sand, and only to realize that everybody has passed him and he's there alone. But entertainment is not the whole market, not going to just pop up one day and say, "Oh, look me, I'm back," and you're going to be able to jump into that. Costumes, and we don't produce costumes in Trinidad as we used to back in the 80s and 90s. We now do a prototype, send it to China, and then we get it to Trinidad and distribute. Who's going to be doing that? So you need to look at your skill set and see how you can market that skill set to have an income in the coming year or two. Otherwise, you will be homeless. And I don't know what to say.
That's a very grim future that you have painted, but it's a very realistic one. What if you could change something in our ecosystem, our culture and carnival ecosystem, what would you change?
I would change the way that people or masqueraders, designers, musicians look at carnival or entertainment. They don't look at it as a business. Nobody had any savings or anything to fall back on when COVID hit. We all thought COVID was a hoax, and 2021 was going to come and we was going to have a carnival. 2021 came, there's no carnival. So I would like them to get some books, do an online course, and learn about the business of whatever skill set you have. Understanding the business, understanding what you do, and how you can market that skill set, and not hope for the next carnival to just jump on board and say, okay, I'm going to have a band.
And on that note, Alvern, tell me, what is your parting words to our viewers?
If you're an entrepreneur, thinking to be an entrepreneur, have a vision, have a passion, have some motivation, look at risk, look at your creativity, and after that, do some market research. Because not everything that you see someone looking nice or looking nice to someone might be the right thing for you. Find your own passion, your own skill set, and learn how to market that.
Thank you very much, Alvern Porter. And he's brought us some realities. Unlikely to have a carnival in Trinidad and Tobago before 2023. And what are the risks that that brings us? He's also pointed out to the fact that Europe is opening and the kind of entertainment that the Caribbean can push to Europe is possible. Demming Chronicles. Thank you very much, Alvern Porter. And we'll be back with you. We'll be back with you shortly.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Demming Chronicles Season 2. And on this segment of the program, we welcome Dale Ramirez. Dale, if it were not for COVID, what would your business day look like?
Wow. If it weren't for COVID, I think I'd be very busy trying to keep things together, because going into 2019, 2020, business was already very challenging for people like myself. So I would have been feverishly working at driving sales, getting people through the doors of the restaurant and the art gallery that had just opened, Loft Gallery. So I would have been very busy, but then came along COVID, and now everything is, pretty much zero.
But Dale, you were successful in keeping drink open for a long time at a space that had had a history of failure. What do you think was responsible for that?
Well, one, because we hit a sweet spot. Drink, it didn't happen by accident. Drink was it was something that I had been thinking about for a long time before it even showed up, and I think the attention to the details that we put into the restaurant and just the outreach that we had done over the number of years, over the 12 years that Drink had been in business, was directly related to people coming back to Drink all the time. So everyone that came to Drink believed that it was theirs, and that was something that distinguished us from a lot of other restaurants. It was a very personal kind of space. It was a it was a personal touch that made the difference to the industry. And we were known to, at least people in the arts and theatre community, as like a mainstay. Drink, it was actually one of the reasons I chose that location, is because I was thinking that Woodbrook needed a theatre district, and because we already had Little Carib Theatre just down the streets and a bunch of little art galleries popping up around, and nothing was actually serving the people that had ventured to those spaces, apart from what was already existing on our Peter Avenue. So we had found our little niche, and we held on very tight. That was really what made us successful.
And that little niche is no more.
Well, for now.
Yes, for now, and I think for the foreseeable future. But tell me, what do you think is going to happen out of COVID? Because right now, nothing is happening.
What's very important is the recovery. What we will have to accept is that the landscape will definitely change. The way people do business will definitely change, but and we will have casualties. We have casualties from the virus directly, in that people are getting sick and actually dying. But then we have businesses that will, for one reason or the other, will no longer be part of the landscape. So we have to accept that is one of the realities of life. It's just like a war, for instance. I always look at COVID as this is almost like a slow motion war that we're experiencing. There are no buildings exploding, but things are definitely imploding. Like, things are vanishing off of the face of our cities and towns. And what you're seeing now is a bunch of little signs saying for rent, for sale, for rent, for sale. So we're going to need quite a number of years to recover, to get back to a point where everyone has the kind of momentum that they need to survive. It's not going to be a quick fix, definitely.
Yeah. You talked about changing the way we do business. Could you give me an example of some of the changes that you foresee?
I think confidence in the industry is an important thing. So no, we don't have to change the recipes and the way we pour drinks, but we definitely have to find a way to reignite the interest in the industry with people, because the restaurant business in Trinidad was already a niche thing. Like, the type of business I ran wasn't, there weren't a million of those restaurants around. And so it was already a niche item, but it was growing. And I think what has happened is now people are recoiling back into their homes and back into calling and making, deciding to have at-home lines and ordering food online and that type of thing. But the whole notion of going back to a restaurant is something that will need a lot of work, and we need the assistance in doing that. I think one of the things I thought about, especially, let's say, for Woodbrook, for instance, of all the restaurants in that area, in order for them to survive, people need sales. The restaurants need covers. They need people to walk into the doors. And post-COVID, people aren't going to be that inclined to go into small spaces anymore. So I had thought what would be interesting is if we were to involve the city corporation, for instance, and ask them for the permission to use the green spaces within Woodbrook and utilize things like Adams Square and Seagate Square to get people into those spaces so that restaurants can then use parks as the holding station for their businesses. So let the restaurant deal with the food, but let the city deal with the logistics of bringing people out into these green spaces. And I think by doing that, I mean, already you've won one of the challenges in that people will feel more comfortable going into an open air space, you know, where you don't have to wear a mask, where you could sit, you know, 6 to 10 feet apart. But that would require some out of the box thinking on the part of the city for sure.
Dale, that is such a brilliant idea. I could almost visualize Adam Smith Square, Seagate Square as dining areas with entertainment and so on. I can see that.
Yeah, and it will go in line with what the city has been talking about, which is trying to reinvigorate the city. But they always have this otherworldly type of approach in that, like, they'd rather build an archway, for instance, or things like that. The city would spend millions of dollars on, rather than doing the more fundamental things that just drive sales, which is then what drives the economy.
Yep. And the driving of sales has to do with getting people feeling comfortable and coming back into spaces. Mm-hmm. But in terms, for instance, of how we do business, where we still do a lot of cash business, do you see that being impacted at all?
Yeah, I think so. But that's where financial services would have to fall in, and people will have to get on board with the more remote forms of payments and technology. Already people have credit cards and debit cards, and already people have gotten accustomed to buying things without seeing the restaurant and just paying via online and that type of thing. So that, I don't think, is something that people will have a hard time buying into. I think a lot of people already do, but it will definitely help. It will definitely aid in assuring people that, you know, their health and safety are protected, because, you know, there's less chance of any kind of contamination or anything like that.
What you're referring to is really that move towards a cashless society. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder of the extent to which our supply chain will support a cashless society. So, for instance, your suppliers, to what extent can they support that?
My suppliers, well, they already get paid by check. So, but I think the real challenge would be getting the retail side of business to be cashless, completely cashless. I don't think it's a hard thing to do. It's just a matter of investing in the technology. And I don't know if financial services in Trinidad are willing to spend the kind of money to ramp up that service to be offered. Only because it doesn't make dollars and cents to them, you know, unless there's enough of a market there to justify that kind of expenditure for them. They're not going to be interested in turning things completely cashless. You know?
Yeah. You know, my view of that is that one mechanism of transmission, one potential mechanism of transmission of disease is the physically handing cash to a person. So if I could go with a cashless option, right, I think that was worth it, because, you know, herd immunity for us is a long way off. But let me ask you, Dale, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs? Because at one stage you were a young entrepreneur and you've been very successful. What's your advice?
In light of COVID, my advice would be to tread very carefully going forward. Also, it's not a matter of just jumping into a business opportunity. No, don't do that just yet. If you're out of business right now and you don't have things like overheads to contend with, maybe now is the time where you let that idea of yours just marinate for a while. But I think for a young entrepreneur, however you define that person, out of something like COVID comes a lot of new needs. So your business could have been A, but then out of something like COVID and the challenges that are now arising, a young entrepreneur a good entrepreneur would see those new needs as the new things to fulfill. So I mean, I haven't really thought about it in terms of like what type of businesses are coming out of it, but as for a young entrepreneur, essentially I would say just hold on to your horses. Don't dive in head first just yet. Get all the information, like your last guest has said, like a lot of research, like research, and you know, find people that you could bounce ideas off of, mentors, the internet, you know, and speak to people that can help form your ideas in a more holistic way, I would think.
Yes. And Dale, tell me, what does the future hold for you?
For me, it's right now I'm focused on just surviving. We've after Drink and Loft had closed, myself and another restaurateur, Roses Hezekiah, we opened a small bakery, basically selling pastries. So from being on the higher end of the food and beverage business, we are now selling things that cost $7. So the dynamic for the type of business that we're into has completely changed, but the fundamentals remain the same. It's all about the product offering and maintaining a standard of high quality in order to retain our customers. So for me right now is working on what is now called Punch and Pie. That's our little pastry shop. And that's a very small piece of real estate with much fewer demands on it. So it's something that we could, you know, wrap our heads around and manage in a small way until things really start to pick up again. So that's it for me right now, just kind of holding down the fort very quietly. And by having that new restaurant, the new pastry shop, I was able to retain some of my staff from the old restaurant. So that was one of the motivations for me as well, because just letting people go out into this new wilderness was a hard thing to do. So being able to hold on to several of our employees was, you know, a win for us. And so, and we're still there. So we are doing okay.
Well, that's excellent, Dale. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that the staff you have retained feel immense gratitude that they're still there. Do you have any other comments you wish to make before we wrap this interview?
Well, I think what I'd like to see is the governments, while they of course they are the main players in this whole fight against COVID, I would like to see them step away a little bit from the management of these small businesses, because you talked about herd immunity, for instance. The only way we can achieve herd immunity is if we achieve herd immunity, and the way we do that is through people being exposed, unfortunately, to the virus. If you can't achieve herd immunity by vaccinating 100% of the population. That's never going to happen. I don't think anywhere has vaccinated that many people, and Trinidad already has a challenge in vaccinating people. So we need to educate, I guess, the healthy younger people so that they know what the risks are involved with COVID, and let them back out into the communities. Let those people go out there. And if they get the flu, if they get the virus, they can then, you know, there's a higher percentage of people that are battling this with no problem at all. The more of those people that we have, the better. And therefore, by keeping people caged in and blocked in, it means that we're delaying that herd immunity that we'd like to get. So I would ask the Minister of Health and those guys to think about it from that point of view, like let the healthy people back out to work, and then deal with the back end, deal with the sick people separately. I know it's people's lives we're dealing with, but I don't particularly believe that the way we've been doing things has been the best. No country in the world has really responded effectively to this virus, but yet everyone's following every other person's example. No one's doing anything out of the box, and therefore we're not going to get the kind of results that we need. So I would think Trinidad and Tobago should just focus on some more out of the box and newer ideas, maybe things that may be a little more controversial, but I think that way we could maybe achieve more success.
Thank you very much, Dale. And that is a real radical view. And it's a view that some people hold, that we can't continue to run away from COVID.
No.
We have to be able to deal with COVID. And that may mean exposure, but not exposure in a way that is irresponsible, but being responsible, but being out there. Thank you very much. Demming Chronicles, Dale Ramirez, his business has been one of the casualties of COVID, but we look forward to a brighter future. Demming Chronicles, we'll be back with you shortly.